Imagine a freight train disappearing into the Siberian night, its holds stuffed with crates of glittering Tsarist gold. Guards in fur hats slam the doors shut as the locomotive whistles into the darkness, never to return. Whispers in Harbin say the Bolsheviks secreted away a fortune so vast it could rewrite history. Peel's century-old secret, the Kremlin's frozen fund of 1918. Where did the gold go? Who holds the key? Now let's rewind to winter 1917 and set the stage for our frozen treasure hunt. After the October Revolution, the Bolsheviks swooped in and took over the Russian treasury, inheriting roughly 400 million gold rubles, enough to make Scrooge McDuck blush. Senior banking regulators like the old Imperial Bank staff were either in exile or facing the firing squad, while investment tycoons and government advisors scrambled to figure out who controlled the gold. Picture Leonid Krasin, a top Bolshevik envoy known for negotiating foreign loans, exchanging knowing glances with NKVD officials who had more secrets than your uncle at Thanksgiving. The new Soviet government was busy implementing war communism, essentially state seizure of all private assets. But rumors grew that a covert faction within the Red Army wanted a backdoor stash to finance fledgling industry projects. Think of offshore trust strategies, basically hiding funds abroad, and hedge arbitrage, exploiting price differences, as modern analogies. The Bolsheviks were essentially plotting a gigantic, underground arbitrage to bypass strict requisition. Meanwhile, Allied legations in Moscow exchanged frantic telegrams. Have you heard about gold moving east? Italian advisors in St. Petersburg joked, it's like 007 tracking down a nuclear bomb, only colder. And somewhere in Siberia, miners who'd lost their pensions were about to find out their tunnels might hold more than just rock. Now let's dive deeper into the clues surrounding this frozen fortune. The first clue, the mysterious account. In late December 1917, a coded ledger surfaces at the Kazan branch of the state bank, listing transactions that make no sense on any public balance sheet. An entry reads Maple Leaf Deposit, transfer to Kolyma mine, with a note mentioning 800 bars priority cash. Whose account is this? No official holds the key because this ledger was never supposed to exist in the first place. Imagine a disheveled clerk discovering a hidden column, lines of figures scribbled like a spy's cipher, and realizing that piles of Tsarist gold may be slipping through war communism's iron grip. One veteran banker mutters, it's like someone using offshore trust tactics before the term was even coined. Could this phantom account be a shell structure set up by Bolshevik insiders to shield funds from requisition officers? Transition, but clues rarely come alone. Let's move on to our next lead. The second clue, the international informant. By mid-January 1918, a Japanese intelligence officer in Harbin receives a smuggled letter from a Russian emigre. It describes locomotives under red banners, loading crates in Omsk station at midnight. Eyewitnesses heard crates thud onto flat cars, each labeled C-75, C-80, like coded coordinates rather than inventory tags. This informant writes, under strict NKVD guard, gold moved like an invisible river toward the frozen north. The letter hints at hedge arbitrage tactics, moving assets to avoid state seizure, and talks about branch manipulation, where local functionaries siphon small amounts to fund black market weapons purchases. Picture that industrial sprawl in Omsk, steam rising around boxcars under moonlight as soldiers bark orders in Russian, gloves sweating against cold steel. Rumors swirl that a senior commissar named Mikhail Sveshnikov orchestrated the route, bribing station masters with promises of favors once the Red regime cemented power. Transition, yet even eyewitness testimony leaves questions. So here's our third clue. The third clue, the sudden disappearance of funds. Come late February, scriveners at the Siberian Mining Directorate note a startling gap. Kolyma's ledgers show enormous tonnage of gold arriving, but none ever recorded as mined or stored. Miners recall the tunnels filling with icy drafts and strange flickers of lantern light, but no one saw the treasure leave. A local foreman confides, it was as if the gold melted into the permafrost, then vanished. Meanwhile, bribery and money laundering chatter grows louder among Siberian apparatchiks, because records indicate tiny shipments of gold surfacing in Vladivostok weeks later, destined for private arms dealers across the Pacific. That means someone hijacked the main stash en route, or the Bolshevik faction split the supply chain, each side pocketing millions. Can you feel the tension? It's like chasing ghosts through a maze of frozen tunnels, each twist promising a reveal that never comes. Transition. With these clues laid out, our pursuit of truth intensifies. Brace yourself for the big reveal ahead. Now, at the turning point of our frozen mystery, a shocking breakthrough comes to light. In early March 1918, an intercepted Bolshevik dispatch from Irkutsk references a Krasnogold initiative, a coded project name hinting at the exact location of a massive vault deep in the Kolyma tunnels. While most historians dismiss this as wartime propaganda, a defector named Ivan Petrov, once a mid-level communist official, provided a detailed map, a subterranean chamber carved beneath ancient permafrost, stocked with crates stamped C80. Think of offshore trust networks, but carved into rock instead of banks. Petrov's testimony reveals how regional communist functionaries exploited hedge arbitrage by negotiating clandestine arms deals with foreign dealers in exchange for currency, bypassing war communism's requisition rules. In one unforgettable scene, he describes bribing a station master at Omsk with a leather briefcase of gold coins for safe passage. That same station master later died under mysterious circumstances. His ledger burned. Suddenly, that coded entry, Maple Leaf Deposit, makes sense. It was a diversion tactic named after a Canadian trade route the Bolsheviks used to launder funds through neutral ports. But the real twist comes when Allied cables surface in a New York archive, revealing a secret agreement between British intelligence and a Chinese warlord. Pay 50,000 pounds sterling for any information on Tsarist gold. They wired Yakutsk for updates, but by the time the gold reached local mines, the wild negotiation cycle meant multiple hands dipped into the pile. Picture the vault, rows of wooden crates, each crate holding 50 bars of gleaming bullion, lit by flickering carbide lamps in a tunnel half submerged in ice. Petrov claims that by the time the Red Army's high command arrived to inspect, half the stash was gone, looted under bribery and money laundering schemes orchestrated by the regional NKVD chief who disappeared days later. Rhetorical question: could the Bolsheviks afford to lose half a fortune and still keep the revolution alive? The answer lies in the remaining half. It supported the first Soviet armament factories in Ural, fueling early industrialization. Yet irony strikes. While war raged in Europe, those same gold bars once shipped to Vladivostok were used to purchase Japanese rifles and British ammunition. It's like financing your own wristwatch with coins minted for your grandpa's retirement. The climax lands: the Kremlin's frozen fund wasn't lost forever. It was split, laundered, and invested, sometimes in dynamite, sometimes in steel mills. Our cold case heats up when modern treasure hunters, drilling near the Kolyma tunnels, uncover shards of gold leaf along icy walls, proof that at least fragments of Tsarist treasure still linger under the permafrost. The legend endures. Some bars might still lie buried, waiting for a shovel. So, what can today's investors learn from a hidden stash of Tsarist gold frozen in Siberian permafrost? First, secrecy often comes at a high price. The Bolsheviks thought they could secure untraceable funds, but internal corruption and complex laundering schemes cut their cash in half. In modern terms, it's a warning: no matter how clever your offshore trust or hedge arbitrage strategy, you'll need airtight compliance and oversight, or you risk losing everything to bad actors. Second, diversification matters. Splitting that gold between mines, arms deals, and factories helped the Soviets weather the storm of civil war. Just like spreading investments across stocks, bonds, and real estate can shield you from market volatility. However, there's a darker lesson. When governments or institutions hoard wealth in secret, ordinary people pay the price. While the Frozen Fund financed early Soviet industry, it also funded weapons that perpetuated famine and injustice. Investors and citizens must ask, is my money supporting values I believe in, or am I unknowingly fueling something I regret? And here's a playful thought. Imagine if Reddit sleuths discovered those remaining gold bars and kickstarted a real-life treasure hunt. The YouTube drama alone would break the internet. Before we wrap up, ponder this. What other frozen funds might be hidden in plain sight? whether in a cold wallet address or an offshore account? And what would you do if you found them? In the end, transparency and ethics should guide financial decisions as much as potential profit. If you enjoyed peeling back the layers of this century-old mystery, hit that like button, subscribe for more tales of financial intrigue, and drop a comment below. Which hidden fortune should we uncover next? Until our next suspenseful dive, keep your eyes open and your wallets honest, because sometimes the coldest secrets hold the hottest lessons.